Richard Brodsky has listened to all of this, and his head is probably spinning by now. Richard is with Demos and says higher taxes on the rich are coming, and they are long overdue. Go ahead, Richard.
Well, millionaires are a good thing in the American economy. It's great we have them. But over the last 30 years, their share of the burden of government and the things that make us a society has just fallen through the floor. What's the president?
Wait a minute, hold on a second. Before you let that go out as gospel, let me just give you some figures from the IRS. It's not from David Asma, it's from the Internal Revenue Service. In 1987, the top 1% paid 16% of all federal taxes. 30 years later, in 2007, the top 1% paid 28% in all federal taxes. And that's almost a doubling. So you're saying they're not paying more, but they're paying twice as much?
Because they have more than that in wealth. Their wealth has grown at such a rate that their relative tax burden has fallen, David. Look, I'm all for having people make a lot of money. But in the end, we've become an unfair society. And the 99% are shouldering a burden that is too high. The middle class is suffering, and the wealthy are getting away with it. What the president is doing is fair. It's good economics. And most importantly, it's bipartisan. There's a growing number of Republicans in New York State, they just voted for it, that are saying that we've got to readjust the tax rates. Andrew Cuomo got this thing over. He got it over with the unanimous support of the Republican Party in the state Senate.
It's true. It's true. Of course, you're talking about one of the most liberal Republican parties in the nation. And I see Zane right now, by the way, shaking his head, going, oi, oi, oi. But go ahead.
Look, this ship has left politically. The Occupy Wall Street movement, whatever its limitations, whatever its failures, has put into the lexicon 99% versus 1%. And even Mr. Tankel used that phrase. In the political sense, the era of no taxes, no, 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 is over.
Okay,
we're back
but
to
nobody's
a demand
not paying
side
it.
economics.
Hold on a second, because I say no, 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 no to that. I just gave you figures. 28% of all the taxes in America, the federal taxes, are paid by the top 1%. So they are paying taxes. You're saying something wrong when you say no, 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 no.
No, what I'm saying is that they're paying less than their share of the wealth.
Well, what should okay, hold on a second. Let me just talk very personally. I'm very well paid. Thank God I'm well paid. I pay 50% of my income in taxes. Do you think it should be more than that?
David, there's no such thing as a tax that's inherently good. It's what you do with the money.
But I'm trying to get an amount from you, Richard. I pay 50% in taxes. Should it be more than that?
In your case, David, it should only be 12%, but that's because I like you.
Seriously, I love your consideration for me, but really, what should the top rate be? I mean, because we had the Simpson-Bowles report that the president commissioned, and then he ignored the report, saying that we should bring tax rates down to increase economic activity, but get rid of a lot of those deductions. Are you okay with that?
It depends on what the overall effect is. I have no magic allegiance to a 50% rate or a 30% rate or a 20% rate. What I want is fairness. What I want is something that's good for the economy.
We all want fairness.
Sure.
But
I'm not so sure.
I personally don't think that 50% is fair, but I certainly don't want it to go much more than 50%.
David, let's just go back to the tax rates under George Bush the first or Ronald Reagan. We would have then income sufficient to let the government
Hold on a second. Hold on. Point of order here, Richard. Ronald Reagan, first of all, he brought taxes down in '83, but then the 1986 tax reduction, they went down to a top rate of, it was either 25 or 28%. We're a lot more than that right now.
There was take the average during the Reagan years. That's all I'm asking for. Look,
the average. Hold on a second. If you want to take that, I'm sorry to keep interrupting, but the average was lower than it is now. I think you mean to go back to the Clinton rates, right?
The Clinton rates would be fine as well. We had the most prosperous, balanced, and working economy of the last 40 years. Then look, there are two issues: fairness and effectiveness. What the president has proposed is going to work on both counts, and the American people have begun to appreciate that.
But you just heard an entrepreneur say that he is canceling 2 projects that could employ 200 to 300 people because he's worried about higher taxes. How can you say it's not going to affect anything?
I hope that Zane doesn't have investors or shareholders, because if he could make money with those projects, and he's not doing them because he doesn't like Barack Obama,
the profit margin these days,
economics.
Richard, the profit margin these days is paper thin. It's very hard to make a profit these days, and that's why an added increase in the tax burden is enough to make him stop doing another project.
That wasn't his argument, David. You're a good lawyer, but that's not what he said. He said it was
He's
the
right here.
atmosphere
Zane, am
and
I wrong?
No, you're absolutely right. And
Excuse
the
me.
fact of the matter is, I canceled those projects because of stockholders and investors. If those projects fail, they lose all their money. Our margins are now paper thin. Paper thin. If the unions are successful with the NLRB things and what have you, we will be out of business. I can tell you with good authority.
We have run out of time. Richard, I had to pull that Woody Allen. You know that Woody Allen movie where he says he's misquoting somebody, he pulls somebody. I had to bring Zane back in. Forgive me for doing that. But come back and see us again, Richard, all right?
Look forward to it.